Welcome. Design and the Arts Fostering Optimism and Innovation, an IdeaSpies and Centre for Optimism event with Gillian Corban in conversation with special panellists Camilla Schippa, the head of the social outfit, Gabrielle Mordy, CEO of Studio A, Lisa Cahill, CEO of the Australian Design Centre, Lynn Wood, Chief IdeaSpy, IdeaSpies, the Chairman of the Centre for Optimism, Robert Masters, and yours truly, Victor Perton. Welcome to this wonderful event, co-hosted by IdeaSpies and the Centre for Optimism. And it features a special friend, Gillian Corban, her best friends, Camilla Schippa, Gabrielle Mordy, Lisa Cahill, and to have Lynn Wood and Robert Masters here as well. Firstly, Gillian Corban is the principal of Corban and Blair, and she's also the arts editor of IdeaSpies. Hi, Gillian.
Hi there. Thanks for having us. Looking forward to this.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun. And Camilla Schippa, who in a small world I interviewed for my first book with Australian Leadership and Optimism, and now Camilla runs the Social Outfit. It's an ethical trading, social enterprise, providing education and training in the fashion industry with refugee and new migrant communities in clothing production, retail, design and marketing. And if you look at the colours and the smiles there, it epitomizes what optimism needs and what the country needs. Welcome, Camilla.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
And then Studio A, we've got Gabrielle Mordy, who's the artistic director and the CEO, and it's a supported studio for artists living with intellectual disabilities, and it's an advocate for the rights of all people. And it's just, again, look at the colours, the smiles, the enterprise. Gabrielle, it's wonderful to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. So lovely to be here.
And then Lisa Cahill, the Australian Design Centre. And again, if you look at those evocative pictures and paintings and sculpture and again, people. The Australian Design Centre is a fantastic centre for design and thinking. And Lisa's been in senior government roles. She's worked in the design and arts sector. And now she's in the leading centre for craft and design in Australia, nurturing innovative makers and thinkers. So welcome, Lisa.
Thanks, Victor. I'm really looking forward to the conversation as well. Exciting.
And then Lynn Wood, my friend Lynn Wood, the inspiration for IdeaSpies, a conversation in Canada sparked this creative model for sharing innovative ideas. And as Lynn said to me, optimism is essential for innovation. And fortunately, it can be learned. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you very much, Victor. It's a pleasure to be part of this, and thank you for hosting.
Pleasure. And then my chairman, Robert Masters, Centre for Optimism, and he is the person who coined the better normal. And that's a project that's consuming us. I was pleased to have a friend who's an Anglican bishop write an essay on that yesterday, on the better normal and compassion. And it's wonderful to have Rob here as well.
Thank you, Victor. Look forward to it.
So the first question we always ask in these shared events with IdeaSpies is, what makes you optimistic? Gillian, what makes you optimistic?
Well, I'm an optimistic person anyway, but I'm optimistic that we will come up with new ideas that will really make a difference, that there'll be ideas that actually support everyone, intelligent ideas with integrity, and that we will be able to make new things happen somehow, even though it doesn't seem like that right at the moment, but I believe it will happen.
You're leading us out of the fog of pessimism, Gillian.
Hopefully.
And Camilla, what makes you optimistic?
Well, I chose to get in my early days into the international development work, and you can't do that work unless you're optimistic that you can make a difference and that the world can get better. Otherwise, you know, how would you even start it? And I've always been an optimist, and I've always thought that things can change, even if they look really challenging, and even in, you know, in the face of challenges, if you just keep at it and put your best effort in things, they can just, you know, take a turn for the better. And that's really what's happened, at least throughout my life, and what I've seen happen in the people around me. So I will always remain an optimist.
And you're an inspiring and infectious optimist, Camilla. So the epitome of what we foster. Gabrielle, tell us, what makes you optimistic?
I think it's some of the most darkest times that has made me realize or given me faith in optimism, because it's really been in some of the darkest times in life that I've discovered the power of connecting to what makes you passionate, the power of connecting to what makes you feel alive, and using creativity to channel that and prioritize that in your life and make it come alive in your life. And it's in those times that you discover the capacity of change, and that you can have dark times and you can find new ways out of that, and that actually some of the kind of best experiences in life can come from those difficult, challenging times. And so with that capacity, how can we be optimistic?
That is isn't it incredible? I mean, it's leading people out of the darkness and leading yourself out of the darkness. It's just a wonderful, inspiring way of expressing that, Gabrielle. And Lisa, what makes you optimistic?
Well, I'd like to say all of the above, but I'm also, and I do believe that. I think you've all given a fantastic response, but I also think from where I sit, the design world and the creative world is a very optimistic space to be in. And I think that we're looking always in design at, you know, solving problems and coming up with new solutions and looking to a better future. And so I think design by its very nature is optimistic, and I feel really buoyed by that optimism in the space in which I work. So if I wasn't naturally an optimistic person, I think I would be one by virtue of where I sit now.
Yeah, taking a risk and making a design. People often quote Dyson, the vacuum cleaner guy, who said that he had 5,000 models before he arrived at success. So design, you have to be an optimist, because a pessimist
You
gets
really do, and you're optimistic also about, sorry to interrupt, but you're optimistic also about failure. You know, I mean, failure is optimistic in and of itself. You know, you've tried and you've tested things and you've got better. So it's a continual kind of cycle, I guess, of change and optimism. Yeah.
Well, it's no wonder the Design Centre is such a leading centre, both for Australia and globally. It's just, you nail it, Lisa. Lynn, what makes you optimistic?
I think being surrounded by creative people. I'm glad that Gabrielle mentioned creativity, because I don't think a lot of people realise Australia ranked #1 on the last creativity index. And it was based on 3 T's. Can anyone guess what the 3 T's would be? Talent. It's actually a good one. Actually, it's talent, tech, and tolerance. Australia rates really, really highly on those 3 T's, and that's why we were #1. And so it's wonderful being around people like you who are creative.
And Robert Masters, we have no vision from you. Well, we have lots of vision from you, but no vision from your camera. What makes you optimistic?
I apologise for that, Victor. I don't know what's going on here today. But the people involved in this session, for a start, but anyone who can bring about change, especially here in Australia, to bring it into a greater leadership position through optimism. That's what optimism's about.
Absolutely. So Lynn Wood, we're here to talk about art, design, innovation and optimism. What are the favourite ideas you're sharing in IdeaSpies?
Oh, thank you for asking. So I'll share the screen. As you said, Victor, Gillian is our artistic editor, and it's wonderful to have her sharing ideas from her wonderful studio. You can see some of these ideas, the 6 capitals. Actually, I used to be involved in that with integrated reporting, so it's very interesting to see that book, which I'm sharing. That beautiful self-scarf collection, all about artistic attitudes. the face masks with flair. What a wonderful idea that is. I wonder who came up with that.
Camilla?
Yes, exactly. Giving your video calls more personality with a movie set. The BBC has just released their movie sets that you can use as backdrops. I actually love that one, absolutely fabulous. I haven't worked out yet how to do it as a backdrop, but I'm sure if I talk to any of you afterwards, you can tell me how to do it. And going further down, I just particularly like to mention this wonderful rainbow in this wingtip of a plane. Now, I wonder who took that. How did you get that photo, Victor?
Oh, it was shared with me by someone. My son is doing flying lessons, and he's at the age of 15, he's editor of one of the leading aviation blogs. So I've got a 15-year-old who shares lots of innovation and design.
Yeah, so well done. So you've put up that idea, which anybody can do on IdeaSpies. Gillian is the artistic editor, as I said, and she puts up most of the ideas, but anybody can. Gillian is actually setting the model for this. So it's just wonderful. It's so lovely to see all these ideas being shared. You can see all the different masks. It's a bit difficult sharing or doing the share on screen. I should have practiced that beforehand. But anyway, you can see that the best idea is the face masks with flair. The next one is nowhere near as nice. The Australian clothing company with that black mask, nowhere near as impressive as Camilla's mask.
Thank you.
Anyway, so thank you very much for the opportunity to share some of those ideas, Victor.
Oh, absolutely fantastic. Well, Gillian, Corban and Blair's been around, I think, is how many decades? So we won't mention that. I think it was since you were the age of 10, I get the impression. Tell us about what you do. And you know, I just had a little box arrive at home today, you know, full of great ideas for inspiring people to optimism and gratitude. So what is it you do?
Well, we're product designers, and we've been doing this for 3 decades, which is a long time. First of all, we started off in the retail sector, making products for the retail sector, things like photo albums and things like that for people to keep their memories in, which has always been important. But we now really work more in the corporate sector, although not quite right at the moment. We're doing much more online selling. But there's been so many changes over the 30 years that we've been in business. So we've worked through ideas, we've worked through, the journey's really thrown up a lot of things. And if it hadn't been for the fact that we could have ideas, we were positive, we made products and we were optimistic, I don't think we would have managed to have stayed in business so long. And I think it's sort of optimism and passion that really enables you to do this, or it's enabled us to do it. And so that's made the journey really interesting. And so I guess we're in the business of imagination, like creating something new and different, relevant and desired. And we love new ideas. So being artistic editor is, you know, fantastic because we're always looking for ideas. But if anyone out there has got artistic ideas, I'd be very happy to receive them, because it's, you know, we're looking all around the world for artistic ideas all the time to put on IdeaSpies. But basically, I guess we're in the ideas business, we're in the customer business, because there's got to be a customer at the end of it. Because we're in business and we live in the world we do, we have to be learning and being able to change. And also, as part of what we do to make things interesting, we combine stories and we collaborate. So those are some of the key things that we do. With ideas are great, but they take quite a lot of work to make happen. And as Lisa was saying, you try, you test, you fail, you try again. And people don't always realise that, say with what we do with products, they just don't exist. There's so much work that goes into them. People often come to us and they'll want a new product and they somehow think you can just pluck it out of the air, when the design process is quite a long one. So that's really important. And also, ideas can come from lots of different places, and it generally takes a team of people to make them happen. And that's one of the most interesting things about being in a creative environment, that you're all sort of working together to do this. And I guess imagination is so important, particularly at the moment where in a business like ours, we're reimagining it yet again. And it's probably the hardest one we've ever done, but we're having to make changes. And one of the things that we're looking at doing is being more local, because the things we do to get things made in China, as well as New Zealand. New Zealand's fine, except that they're not quite back to business yet with China. And then we're just looking at, well, what would we do if we couldn't get them from China? How will we recreate what we do? So we're reimagining what we do, how we do it, and where we do it. The other thing is the customer. Today, the customer is everything. We know so much, even in a small business like ours, we are able to collect data and understanding of our customer, which is really important. Although right now, getting to our corporate customers isn't all that easy because they're spread all over the place. So we've just done something today where we've sent out a little package to people just to remind us, or to remind them what we do, and to sort of share something with them, because that's what we can do with the products we make. Brand is really important. We're quite fortunate in that we started out in the retail sector and then kind of ended up in the corporate sector. And so our brand is quite well spread. It's quite well known after all this time. And we've managed to maintain our values around good design, working with people, the environment, customer service. All of those things have been incredibly important, because customers aren't all that easy either at times. They have really high expectations these days, which I think we live up to it. And I guess learning to deal with change, like at the moment, as I said, we're questioning all our assumptions about everything we've done in the way we've done them, because what we did before isn't necessarily going to work going forward. So we're sort of unpicking things and trying to put them back together in a different way. And we're trying to get close to our customers to see what might work with them, which, as I said, isn't all that easy. We've been doing a lot, like everybody, reading, listening to podcasts, Zooming, daily inspirations, webinars, sharing, mentoring, all of these things to keep us kind of creative and alive and engaged, which is kind of interesting on one hand, because you then got to sort through all that clutter. Like, you hear so much, what are the meaningful bits? And one of the things I'm kind of aware of is that change is really accelerating. So that sorting out process is really important. So I guess reflecting, doing yoga, doing whatever you do to make riding bikes. I know Johnny Weiss rides bikes, who's listening. Just having time to reflect and not just race into past assumptions is really important. And then there's two other things that are important to us. That's stories. What we try to do with our products is tell a story. We want people to know that they've come from real people, that they're not fake. We always like to know who we're dealing with. We go to a website or whatever, we're looking for, I don't know, a customer or a supplier. We like to know who they are, what their values are. And then, of course, products have a provenance as well. We want to be able to tell people why they're there, how they're there, what they're about, what they're made of, who they were made by, who designed them, and even when they were made and where they were made. That provenance is really important, which is particularly interesting working with the three people on the screen, because we always like to share all of that and help promote other people via that provenance as well. And I guess the other thing is showcasing our artistic talent and showcasing Australia. It's really important. We do the most wonderful, unique things down here. So at the end of the day, we're making these cultural artifacts. We've designed them, we've created them, and we've tried to make them positive as well, Victor. And of course, putting meaning and authenticity into something is something you design in. It needs to be real. If you're giving something that's of no value, it's a waste of the environmental and financial resources. So we're very keen that things are authentic, meaningful, and relevant to wherever they're going. And of course, the last one is collaborating, which is something we've done since we started. We've collaborated with artists, poets, designers, a table designer. We made a bongo table out of very heavy cardboard in our early days, which for some reason managed to export to Japan, which was pretty interesting. But working with people like Gabrielle, Camilla and Lisa brings some new ideas, new inspirations, keeps us out of our silo. It just creates a new creative atmosphere. So we're really delighted to be able to have the opportunity to work with people like that. So thank you, the three of you, for your contribution to us. So then I thought, Victor, that's all I want to say, unless you want to ask something. Could I ask the others to start, or did you want to do that?
Yeah, I just want to praise you, because we did a study on strategy, and 90% of the world's companies believe that strategy should be an optimistic process. 80% of them are in review, and what you have done for us today is a masterclass.
Oh, thank you.
To bottle what you've just said, it's modern leadership, and I'm walking on air just listening to it. So, but I'd love you to take control now and introduce Lisa and ask Lisa what's happening at the Australian Centre for Design.
Sure. I think, though, just going back to that, we're really lucky, all of us, that we work in these creative environments. It really does make a difference. It means that you're seeing the world differently, you're looking out differently, and to survive, you have to have really creative strategies. Okay, Lisa, do tell us what you've been up to, because you've been up to all sorts of exciting things lately. Do you want to share that with us?
Perhaps I should preface what I'm going to say about this last couple of months with a few things about who we are. Does that sound like a good start? Yes. Okay.
Sure.
So, Australian Design Centre is a centre, a not-for-profit arts space with a national footprint through our touring program. So we create exhibitions, events, festivals, all sorts of things around design and contemporary craft. And we do some of those things here in Sydney in our Darlinghurst space, and some of them we take on tour around the country. So, we're kind of everywhere. And in any one year, we probably work with around 400 creative practitioners across the country, be they artists, designers, makers. And we're part of a network too, like a network of organisations similar in size to us, independent organisations that make up the Australian Craft and Design Centre network. So I think that's really important too, to know that in each state, and a couple of organisations in some of the bigger states get together and collaborate as a network on making opportunities and creating platforms for makers and designers to showcase their work across the country, and to connect those creative practitioners with audiences for Australian craft and design, both here in Australia and globally. So it's a really exciting space to be working in. And as I said earlier, I do feel really optimistic about the programs that we do and our capacity to make change in that creative space. So in the last couple of months, like everybody, we found that we were having to shift quite substantially what we do, and close the centre here in the country and bring all our touring exhibitions back home, which is no mean feat, because they involve quite a lot of freight. And but anyway, we did all of those logistical things, and we closed down, and we talked about how we might work together as a team. Now, I have a small team. There's only 8 of us, and we all work remotely during that period up until about the end of May, and then started to think about how we might reopen. So in that couple of months, it was about thinking that how we could pivot our programming, and a lot of arts organisations very, very quickly and in a very inspiring way took their activities online, and you saw lots of creative activity happening digitally. And I think, as Gillian, you said, we're kind of swamped with it in a way. There was so much to see and to experience, and a lot of walking outside with no digital input, and just trying to stay sane during that period. But so I think for me, we had a lot of digital material that we could already put out there, and we ended up speaking to our audiences via our newsletters and so on a little bit more frequently than we otherwise would have. But we didn't actually create anything really new in a digital sense. What we thought about is what could we do to help the artists, designers and makers who we work with during this period, and to get through this period and to restart after this period. So we looked at doing a couple of, we looked at the possibilities available to us in different funding and grant opportunities that were out there, and we looked at how we might be able to fund some new projects which would give I guess a new and more optimistic platform for people coming out of the COVID period rather than while they were in it. So we created 3 different projects. One of those I'm very pleased to be working with Gillian on. So courtesy of Corban and Blair, we made, and I'm going to put my gloves on and show you a little bit of this, if you'll bear with me, or at least one glove. It'll take me a while to get them on. We made just a very small handmade journal, and we sent that journal out to 100 different designers around Australia, and we asked those designers, artists, creatives of different spaces, and people who are thinkers in the space as well, I think, not necessarily those that are hands-on creating, but a real mix of people in our orbit. And we asked them to document something of their experience during the COVID period. And so some of those journals are starting to come back, and I just wanted to give you a tiny little preview of this particular one. And this artist is a contemporary jeweler, and she's been looking at the tide lines around where she lives on the New South Wales south coast. And so she's been drawing those tide lines, and you know, just really, really beautiful, just meditations on her observations of the coast and walking along the coast, and looking at how that kind of imagery, those lines, will feature in her work going forward. So it just gives you a little bit of a sense of what these are going to look like. I mean, you know, we didn't have any expectation as to what people would create and how they would create this work, and I still don't really, but the few that are coming in have given me I'm really excited and optimistic about the fact that we're going to have a document of the COVID period from a design perspective that we'll be able to display for our audiences in a digital way for a broad audience, and also in a physical exhibition sense in our space later in the year. So that's one project that we're working on. And another project, Isolate Make, we're calling it. We have engaged 10 makers who are local to Sydney, with some support from the City of Sydney Council, who's been amazing in terms of how they're supporting cultural organisations and artists through this period in the city area. And we're engaging 10 makers, and they're going to be documenting and talking and writing and you know, taking video and photos of work that they're doing during this COVID period. So work they're doing from home, looking at how their practice might have shifted as a result, and then at the end of that we'll have a great body of work, I hope, that we'll be able to exhibit here in the centre alongside the journals later in the year. So that's really exciting too, and I think there's a lot of energy around that. Aside from that, you know, just looking for different ways in which we can support artists, and another project that we started called Object 150. So we have a retail store here at the centre as well, and so what we've done is set aside our commission as an organisation, and any sales is going directly to the artists to support them during a period where most artists' forms of income in terms of retail and markets and things like that are no longer viable for them right now, or haven't been up till now. So that's another way. And then we have also selected a number of artists and asked them to and put them out there online through our retail store in a project called Object 150, where for $150 you can commission that maker to make you something. So that's actually going really well. Lots of them are getting commissions, and people are getting a unique, bespoke, handmade product for their $150. So, you know, it's a bit of mix, trialing some new things, testing some new things, and collaborating with a whole range of people who we haven't previously had the opportunity to collaborate with. And I'm looking forward to working with Gabrielle on something that she's doing, and we've worked with Gabrielle a lot over time as well. So, and for me personally, I think I've really found the whole period to be a feature of the whole period to be a spirit of generosity, really. I mean, people are being so generous around this time. And if that, you know, even small examples, you know, like my neighbours have been swapping their baked goods, you know, so there was a loaf of sourdough will appear. And, you know, and so there's all sorts of things like that, which I think is really fantastic and makes us feel good during this period, which otherwise is pretty tragic on many levels around the world and here in Australia. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. That's fantastic. You're doing terrific work, and I'm sure lots of creative people are really delighted with the support that they're getting. Yeah. Okay, Gabrielle, do you want to tell us what's happening over there? Just unmute.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Studio A is a visual art studio, a supported studio. Essentially, we're about making great art, and we specifically support artists who have intellectual disability. Some of Studio A work is exhibited in my lounge room behind me. This is a painting by Jeanette Skeins and a cushion by Annette Golston. Studio A supports 17 artists. We often get mistaken for an art therapy centre, and I often get mistaken as a nice volunteer, of which I am neither. We're really about supporting people who are high quality visual artists who have particular challenges and need administrative kind of logistic support to get their art out into the mainstream art world, and to also ensure that Australia's visual arts sector includes the voice of diverse Australians. And it's really lovely to be in the discussion today with Lisa, Camilla and Gillian, as we've worked closely with all of your companies over the last few years. Through the COVID period, it's been a very dynamic time for Studio A, and I am thrilled to say that we've never been more creative, never been more active. All our artists are still working actively with us, and many of our artists had barely used the internet before, so it was a very dynamic time. And we've had a lot of artists working online with us via Zoom, working from their home studios. We've created a lot of new partnerships. We're working with UTS, and one of our solutions has been employing artists. So in a time when many artists were facing unemployment, we were able to increase employment for artists, and that's been really exciting. We, for several of our artists who were working from home, we created a 5-day-a-week dance program. So for 45 minutes each day, they'd work with a performance artist, Rosie Deacon and Harriet Body, and they dance online. And that was so successful that UTS have partnered with us. And now it's a public program, part of UTS, called Dancing Together. And if you're so inclined, you can get onto Zoom and dance for 5 minutes on a Tuesday and a Thursday with some of the Studio A artists. And the mission is just to make people feel good. And I think that's what's been happening. And in the slide of images, it may have been confusing to see one of our artists, Megan, in a wedding dress at a postbox. And that's because Megan is a very romantic artist, a very inspired love poet. So whilst she's been working from home, we invited people to request love letters from Megan. So you can say to Megan, this is my beloved, can you tell me how to create love from a distance? And Megan has been handwriting to people, giving them advice, you know, candlelit dinners on FaceTime, lots of air kissing. She'll give you a very bespoke advice for your beloved, and also do a portrait of the two of you. She's written love letters to dogs, to all mothers, not just boyfriends and girlfriends. So that's been a very fun, creative, new way of connecting with audiences. One, I guess, story that I wanted to share that gives me optimism might be a surprise, but it's actually my jewellery. So these are 2 pieces of jewellery, each made by Studio A artist Matthew Calandra. And I think it kind of is a metaphor for the way Studio A works. Each piece were made maybe 6 years ago now. And it was at a time when Matthew was displaying some really strange behaviours. He's a very demure gentleman, about 40, you know, gentleman is the right word for him, and a very quiet. And then we found out that on the way to the studio, Matt was doing some strange things and getting himself into a bit of potential trouble. And it was the police actually that let us know. He was flashing some strange silver metal objects at people and kind of causing some alarm. And we were worried. We thought, you know, his mum came in and we thought, we don't really know why Matt is doing this. It's very out of character. So, and we thought, we don't know that he understands the kind of trouble he could get himself into here. So we sat down, had a chat about why Matt was doing this. He's very quiet. He has an intellectual disability. It can be a bit harder to articulate, you know, your intentions. But what came about was that Matt didn't feel safe. And he's an artist, he wanted an object to carry with him all the time, carry with him from the studio and back, that would make him feel safe. And clearly it needed to be hard and it needed to be metal. Matthew is very dexterous. So one of our staff is a jeweler, and she said he would suit jewellery. He would suit moulding with, I can't remember the material off the top of my head that you mould with to create the moulds, to create the silver jewellery. Anyway, Matt.
Lost wax carving? Or?
That is a different material, but that kind of thing, Lisa. I knew you'd know. So anyway, Matt is we realised it needed to be a potent symbol for Matt. So he came up with the symbol from the Never Ending story. And it's the symbol when the 2 snakes fuse and eat each other. There's this particular word for it that, again, I'm forgetting now. So Matt drew the symbol, and this is one of the symbols. It's the snake, and it's also on this ring. And so then Matt became completely consumed with moulding making these moulds, and a beautiful series of jewellery, of pendants were made. And then everybody actually started to forget about why on earth Matt was making these, and we all just got consumed in making them, exhibiting them. They went to major art fairs, they sold out. Matt still carries it in his bag, and many, many people, including me, all wear this beautiful jewellery, and we just enjoy it for its beauty. Matt has never been in trouble again, and so I thought it was a beautiful story about. Occasionally, I remember why we actually did this, and I thought it was a beautiful story about kind of taking time to engage, experiencing a dark time. Not running to conclusions, slowing down, investigating, taking some focused time, listening to what it is that's motivating this person, and then using creativity, engaging with the passions of that person and their strengths, and creating something beautiful, and how that it doesn't just affect that individual person, but how that can have ripples in the community. And it also became a source of income for Matthew. He made quite a lot of money out of selling that jewellery. And if I can briefly just mention one more story, is another of a Studio A artist, Emily Crockford. So Emily has done major hoardings all around the city. She was again in one of the photos of the Studio A slideshow. In January, Emily's father died of a heart attack. He died in the room beside her. She was there. It was, a shocking time for anyone. And at the time, Emily had major commissions for Lend-Lease. We thought, not really sure what's going to happen. As time has gone on, obviously Emily has been grieving, but during COVID, Emily has taken over her father's art studio at home because he was a craftsman. She has completed an original work for Lend-Lease. Today she's been down at Barangaroo. It's the first time she's left her home since the restrictions, and she's been with the Sydney Morning Herald having a photo shoot at her new hoarding that's just been released there. And in her home studio, she has been painting the most magnificent kind of life-size image of her and her father. She's on her father's shoulders and they're reaching up into the sky, and it's kind of this fusion of her memories of her father and him as an angel, and it's just the most beautiful, inspiring painting. And it reminds me of how you can use creativity and artistry to create inspiration out of, again, really challenging times. And that's it.
Fantastic, Gabrielle. Just, if any of you have been over to where they work, it is just the most inspiring, interesting. They are just so clever, those people. It's just hard to describe, and you've done that really well, actually. You've described it. Thank you very much, and thank you for all the work that you do. It's fantastic. Camilla, need to unmute. Yeah, there we go.
I've been muting myself.
Tell us about your wonderful team now.
Yes, what an inspiring group of speakers, by the way. I could listen for hours. So I'll tell you a little bit about what the social outfit is and does, and then a little bit about what we've been doing the past few months and how critical optimism has really been for us. So we're a social enterprise, and we are also a charity, and we were created just over 5 years ago to address a specific problem. And the problem is that so many of our female humanitarian migrants in Australia are not engaged in the workforce. Only about 20% of them do work. And work is so essential to integration. So we decided to create a fashion label that would essentially only employ refugees, give them the first job in Australia in a supportive environment. So they know how to sew, but they come here and they learn a lot of other things. They learn and they improve their English, they learn about superannuation, they learn how you work in Australia. And over the years, we've been able so far to employ 29 refugees, giving them this opportunity and the job. But we've also touched on the lives of over 400 new migrants and refugees, because we also offer free training classes, sewing classes, and do a whole lot of other work. So the three words in our tagline are actually creativity, community, and collaborations. And they're really true and key to who we are and what we do. Because it is creativity that really allows us to break the barriers and work together and get these women to really collaborate and create all this beautiful fashion when they often cannot even speak the same language. But through creativity, we all come together. We paid over $600,000 in wages to the refugee community over the past 5 years, which we think is fantastic and has gone directly into the hands of those refugees, impacting the lives of their families. And then COVID hit and we had to close our store. And the great majority of our sales, over 80%, comes through our sales in store. And after our first period of thinking, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We had to stop all our training classes, all our sewing programs, all our earn and learn. And these are women who are the most vulnerable, and all of a sudden they're isolated at home. But again, optimism. We said, okay, let's just think about how we can change what we do. Teaching women how to sew with industrial sewing machines through video wasn't going to be possible. So we changed. We said, let's do craft classes. And we've done some amazing craft classes over video. And artists have just come to us and offered their time for free to run these classes. Then everybody was calling me up and telling me, oh, you should make face masks. Everybody's making face masks now. And I was so debating around this, because I thought, I don't want to take advantage of a bad situation to help my bottom line. And again, creativity and teamwork and collaboration. And we came up with the idea of the face masks that you've seen. We decided to make face masks using all our leftover bits of fabric, of which we have a lot, and they're beautiful fabrics, but that we were going to do a B1, G1 model. Buy one, give one. So for each mask that we have been able to sell, and we've sold over 200 to date, we have been able to donate one mask to a person in need. And because we were generous around this and optimistic around this, well, the face masks have drawn so much attention to our website that our online sales have never been stronger. And I know everybody's benefiting from higher online sales when everybody's stuck at home, but we've gone up like 10 times. It's like, and then the last thing I wanted to mention, because we're a charity, the money that we make by selling our clothes is never enough to cover our costs, which are quite high just because of the nature of what we do. And fundraising in a year of bushfires and COVID was going to be really tough. So again, we put our thinking hats on with our community, and we came up with a fundraising channel, a peer-to-peer fundraising campaign. And then I brought this idea to our board, and we were very quickly told we should wait until next year. You know, the environment right now, there's so much difficult challenges for everyone, just park it. And because we're an optimistic team, we said, no, we're not going to park it. We're going to try it. And the campaign and the challenge is actually running this week to celebrate Refugee Week, because to us, Refugee Week is a moment of celebration, to celebrate the great achievements and what refugees bring to this country. The campaign is running this week, and we've already smashed a target because the community has actually come on board, and the community is so critical to everything that we do, that we have just yet again been rewarded for being optimistic, and that makes us even more optimistic for the future. So it's really been amazing to see how much support there is out there. And you know, we've reached over $30,000 in donations, but most donations have been of the amount of $25 to $50, which is so warming to see there is a community out there. And from what Lynn was saying before about, you know, Australia being one of the most tolerant, the support there is for new migrants and refugees, and the willingness there is to support them is just been amazing. So for us so far, and you know, I have family in Italy, so things have been rather tough, but here in Australia, we have seen that, you know, keeping optimistic and keeping creative and coming together to support each other has actually been a great period. So thank you.
Thank you. That's fantastic, Camilla. And what I'm just amazed at, and I mean, when you've got creative people, they just come up with such creative solutions to things, which is so impressive. I mean, all of you have done that. I mean, we've done the same thing. I just feel sorry for people who aren't prepared to say no, like you did, Camilla. See a new opportunity like you did, Gabrielle, and the same with you, Lisa. It's just so inspiring to see optimism coming out of the creative areas. And I think we all need to be in some of these really ordinary businesses, just sharing some of the ideas and the things that we all do to keep ourselves going. So over to you, Victor. Did you want to ask any questions?
Gillian, I'm just so inspired. And if we look at the comments, just fantastic. I mean, this really has been a class for anyone who wants to learn about business and innovation and creativity through a crisis. I'm utterly inspired. Now, Rob Masters has always good questions on leadership and strategy. Rob, can we hear you? No.
Yeah.
Rob.
I heard you, Victor. Yes, it's really to everyone. I was inspired by everyone's stories, which, you know, underpin optimism. But the one thing that I noticed a couple of years ago now, the UK government launched a national program called Creative Health, which was to look at arts for the health and well-being of the community. And they did a whole series of statistical analysis of it and how much it was saving the country from a financial point of view, but also benefiting the health and well-being of the community. And it took into account, you know, therapy, environments, creativity, and all the things that you have been talking about. So my question is really, is there an opportunity from where you all sit to actually approach the federal government to actually launch a program of national creativity?
Someone had an idea that I could share with you, which was at the moment, artists and creative people haven't got work, and that maybe they should be employed by big businesses to work in their workplace just to bring new ideas into the workplace. Just they see things differently, they imagine things differently as a way of sort of infiltrating creative ideas in a different way. So I don't know whether that could get some funding.
Well, I think that would be one part of it. I think it needs to be led by the relevant minister or the Prime Minister to ensure that it gets the cohesion on a national base. And remember, we now have a national cabinet, and we also have a community cabinet co-chaired by Tim Costello. So I think what everyone is talking about here, I think it's part and parcel, to my way of thinking, of actually using the arts and the creativity of all of you to lift the profile of the arts and what contribution it makes to the health and well-being of the nation.
No, brilliant, Rob, brilliant. Now we've got a question. Susan Sly wants to know where she can find these $150 masterpieces, Lisa. How do we find them?
So on our AustralianDesignCentre.com website, if you go to Object Shop on the website, then you'll be able to find the Object 150 commissioning opportunities. The other way to do it is to go to Object Shop online. So you can do it through the website, or there's a direct link to Object Shop online. Shall I put them in the messages? Is that a good way?
Do that. And it's also, Susan, we've also got them on the website, both of this and at the Centre for Optimism, and I'll make sure that I repeat them as well, because I think it was Camilla who said we could listen to these ladies for hours and hours. I mean, this has been brilliant, and if you'd all accept the invitation to come back a few months down the track to share these marvelous stories. Disney's head, Iger, recently retired, and in his autobiography, he said, people are yearning for stories of hope and optimism.
Yeah.
And each of you, Lisa, Gillian, Gabrielle, Camilla, you've given us marvelous stories of hope and optimism to uplift us. And if we look at the comments on the slide, on the side, everyone's been utterly inspired by what you do. But the time has come, as the walrus said, for us to wind up. So I'm wondering if I could ask each of you, just having listened to the others and, you know, the message of, perhaps the question I can ask each of you is, having learnt so much through this, what is your better normal? What are you going to be different that you weren't before the COVID virus? And then I'll ask Lynn and Robert to say thank you. So Gillian, what is your better normal?
I think to be doing more, to be working more with people like the three that we've talked to, and also to be more local, to be more community minded, and to try and educate or share creativity with other people, because we've seen the power of it and people don't always hear these stories. You know, people like bad stories, not good stories, and to get more of these stories out into the community.
Well,
and
I'll help you do that, Gillian, because as I said, I'm not just flattering you. My heart just feels wonderful from hearing these stories.
Oh, thank you, Victor. Thank you.
So Lisa, what's your better normal? Having gone through all of this and learnt so much, what's the Lisa that comes out of this?
I think it's probably doing a little bit more, or being brave enough to do a little bit more of the things that you know, that designers actually do. So, you know, try, test new things, be prepared to fail, not to be, you know, too precious about it. And I think just be more nimble in what we do. And I think to a certain extent we are, but I think this period has really shown that we can just come up with a few new ideas and throw them out there and see where they land, and not be too worried about the outcome. So yeah, being a bit braver, I think.
I don't think it's failing, Lisa. I think it's experimenting. And
well, yes, experimenting, but knowing that it might not go anywhere, you know, and not being bound to a particular outcome.
Yeah, good idea.
Utterly brilliant. Gabrielle, again, you've, as you said, you've employed people, you've done all sorts of things that were unexpected. What's the better normal for Gabrielle coming out of it?
Well, I think one of the assets of Studio A during this period, and part of the reason we've had good success during the restrictions, is our size. Studio A is quite small and tight, and it's meant that we've been able to operate with quite a lot of agility, and we have a very, very effective team of artists, team of staff. We really work together really well, and it's meant that we've been able to pivot quite quickly. And there's a lot of talk about scaling up over the years in the kind of mentoring I've been involved with. It's always like, oh, when are you getting bigger? When are you scaling up? And I'm really glad we haven't, and that our impact has grown, but it hasn't necessarily been through, taking on humongous amounts of new artists. And I think part of our strength and survival has been remaining relatively small. And the other key thing is, I think, remaining small, but having really strong relationships with our partners. And I think part of our effectiveness potentially talking to federal government will be collaborating with other like-minded organisations and being able to really effectively articulate our impact and tell our story.
Gabrielle, that's fantastic. Just the idea of keeping small means that you can be nimble and you're really effective. And I must say that whenever I've been over there, you have a fabulous team.
We do, yes. Thank you.
And Camilla, what's your better normal? I mean, again, 10 times increase in sales and fundraising. So it sounds like you've already reached a new plateau. What's next?
Yeah, well, I think what I really learned is that I can take more risks. We can take more risks, and particularly in the area of branching out from the comfort zone, going to, different types of entities, people that work in different fields, and just make the question, just ask for whatever it is that we would like some support for. And because I've just seen over the past few months that if you have the courage to ask, and you might only ask when you're desperate, but if you actually take the courage to ask, people respond very positively, and that is so encouraging. So why not do it also when you're not desperate?
Brilliant. Well, Lynn, may I ask you to sum up what you've learnt from these marvellous people?
Well, first of all, thanks very much, Gillian, for introducing us to your creative collaborators and their inspiring ideas. And I love it that you share them with us on IdeaSpies. You can actually search the words, the brands, Studio A and Social Outfit on IdeaSpies, and you'll see your ideas, and I love them. So congratulations.
And Robert Masters, can I ask you to thank everyone?
But thank you very much for a most informative session and inspiring session. And I really think, Victor, us in the centre should be taking some of this creativity into a bigger national field, because of the contribution it can make to health and wellbeing. So thank you all very much for your inspiring stories and your work. Thank you.
So have a splendid day, and the Centre for Optimism will be behind you all the way as much as we can. Thank you so much. And we wish everyone who's joined us on Zoom and on Facebook and who will be watching this on demand, I think with each of these studios and each of these businesses has something incredible to offer people in Australia and around the world. So buy their products, buy their designs, buy their innovation, and support Australia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Victor.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed this Centre for Optimism and IdeaSpies event. If you'd like to be involved in the Centre for Optimism, our website is centreforoptimism.com. There's a complimentary subscription if you use the discount code IdeaSpies. And if you think you've got an idea for inspiring people through optimism, don't hesitate to contact me to do a program similar to this. Have a great day.